Okay, I'm a bit late here because these nodes are not exactly ideal. So for the first setup of the bronze node, we are using waiver and a max limit broken CE. That's a trend, by the way, with all these later ones, except there is one setup that doesn't require waiver here. Anyways, Chen Gong might miss the kill on first wave, so be aware of that. That's also a trend with both Arash and Chen Gong. Face guard accordingly. For the second wave, Huhurin obviously has massive damage against wild beasts, so he clears this pretty easily. You don't necessarily need the Traces of Christmas Past CE to get enough damage, but currently it is very recent. Now, the main problem with this setup is that Romulus has to be both mana loading level 10 and he can miss the Imperial Privilege. And if he does, this happens. You're not guaranteed to kill. If it does activate, however, you get a lot more mileage out of this. This is only a 666 Romulus as well, so you can push the damage a bit higher. Unfortunately, there's really no 100% consistent budget setup for this node. For the second one, it's mostly the same, but instead of using Chen Gong, we're using Arash. And instead of Romulus, we are using Summer Yu. And here you can see that Arash does miss the kill by a considerable amount, but face guard should easily handle that anyways. Now, this setup is probably the one I would recommend starting with anyways, because you deal an absurd amount of damage with Sunbai here against Robin. So this is something you can probably do without the max limit broken CE. But the problem with a single target servant in this setup, of course, is that you still need the face cards, and there's not much you can do about it. Like I said, this is basically the best I could do. You could replace Romulus with something like Kana, who does get 25% NP charge instead, and that would bridge the required gap to not need a maxed out mana loading. For the silver node, as usual, it's worth noting that Fondant au Chocolat and Sweet Crystal are basically no effect CEs outside of having the 50%. So you can replace them with stuff like Sun Princess or really anything, any of the 2000 attack point CEs work. Anyways, wave 1 is of course Chen Gong, and yeah, definitely the enemy does live, but it is a berserker, so you should be fine. For the second wave, there's probably some other options that work here, but Summer Chalter happens to work pretty nicely thanks to Chen Gong having free reign in using the Buster buff here. And for the third wave, basically any AoE rider does it. Medusa is the only one that doesn't need the mana loading append at all, so there is that, but basically any of them will do. And then we are on to the gold node. There's two different setups here. Both of these setups use Arash and Chenkong, unfortunately. And this first setup uses Waver. The second one does not, but it potentially has its own issues, and we'll get to that. Regardless, Arash clears out the first wave reasonably well. And because of how much damage Robin has, you don't even need to give the arts buff from Castoria to him. And you can therefore just slap it on Chenkong to clear this second wave. We are using Amadeus here, but that's not entirely necessary. There's other options you can use, obviously, but he's the ideal choice in this case, I suppose, in terms of budget. And then for the actual boss, which is very large, Robin happens to have all the damage in the world. Again, there are other servants that can do this, ones that will be relevant in the second setup as well, because it's quite similar to this one. The main point of this setup, of course, is to cut out Waver, specifically. So the first wave is the exact same, but after that we get into the issue of getting NP charge from somewhere. And in this example I'm using Ryuma, who gives 10% party-wide NP charge, as well as supports Chenkong so you can get more damage out of him. Now, you could also use Santa Altera here and give the NP damage buff to Gong. Or, if you absolutely need to go full budget here, like you don't have Waver or either of the two other servants, you can technically do this using Hans. So you do need to give him some kind of a CE if you want to use the NP, which is fine, you can do that. Maybe I would even recommend doing that, but it's not great. It's chance-based anyways. For the third wave, we are using Shakespeare here, and this means that the last three summer welfares all work here, alongside some other options, but Sumbai, Summer Shelter, and Saber Hosai all do this just fine.